How did our ancestors get through a cold winter in Northern Europe, for example, where they fermented when the harvest was over? They fermented everything they possibly could, from beer to wine to chutneys to relishes to cheese to everything, to get over a cold winter. And we're probably going to have to go back to that to some degree.
So you think they're going to turn the power off on purpose just to get rid of everybody's frozen supplies?
Of course.
Oh, you put me off my fresh fried lobster. You just ruined my day. Are sanctions and a weaponized U.S. dollar prompting central banks to diversify with gold? As the U.S. imposed the harshest sanctions in history against Putin, the central banks of Saudi Arabia and China have taken notice. Saudi Arabia is considering accepting Chinese yuan for oil sales to China. Could this spell the end of the U.S. dollar as a global reserve currency? Because since March 2020, gold's up 30%, silver's doubled. Goldman Sachs, Bank of America, and Wells Fargo all forecast gold to surpass $2,000 an ounce. Call the Patriot Gold Group today before it's too late. Patriot Gold Group has the no fee for life IRA, where your IRA or 401k can be in physical gold and silver, and you may be eligible for the no fee for life IRA on qualifying rollovers. Call 1-800-356-4470 for a free investor guide today. And with the knowledge that Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold IRA dealer from 2016 to present, click on the link in the description box below for more information. And now on with the video. And good afternoon, everyone. Today I have with me Clive De Carl. Now, as we move through these transitions here into the fertilizer shortages and less foods being grown, the hyperinflationary push on foods where people are going to start making a lot different choices on what they eat, what they put in their bodies, how's that going to affect nutrient intake? Because over here on Clive's site, clivedecarl.com, quote, there are only 3 reasons that we lose our health: physical damage, toxicity, and nutrient deficiency. No 4th reason. So pinging on this nutrient deficiency as people make choices to buy foods that might cost less because you need something to fill your belly, or we come to seasonal diets where things are just simply not available anymore. You're going to have to change your choice as the food and the calories start to diminish. Well, society does lockstep but it's all about preparing and knowing what you need to keep your bodies functioning at optimum level. So Clive, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, we can repair even some of the really difficult ones. Some of the really difficult ones, where doctors say, well, it's impossible. It's genetic. Well, very unlikely. You know about epigenetics, overgenetics. I was taught at school that genetics determine your fate. That you're born with it, tough luck, get on with it. But this is totally untrue. You can change your genetics with food, diet, thought, frequency, you name it.
Speaking of that, a rough one to get rid of for a lot of people, gut health and, leaky gut syndrome. As we move into this, also dairy products and meat is going to become less available and far, far, far higher price. And then the grains as well. So, if I say grains, most people have a short list: wheat, soybean, something, corn. But what about, more of these ancient grains, the amaranths, the spelts, the millets, the sorghum, the buckwheat, these sort of things, because gut health is a huge thing. And, moving forward, I'm just predicting right now that people are going to have such terrible food quality that the amount of leaky gut is going to explode to the point where people are going to have such massive skin rashes and almost be inoperable because their skin is flaring off of inflammation from so much toxicity leaking through the gut wall based on the dietary changes. So just your last thoughts here on grains and dairy and gut health as we move forward these changes as well.
Sure. Well, probiotics, probiotics, whether you've made them yourself by fermenting food or soil-based probiotics, I sell probiotics on the website, but you can make your own, obviously. Very, very important. How did our ancestors get through a cold winter in Northern Europe, for example, where they fermented when the harvest was over? They fermented everything they possibly could, from beer to wine to chutneys to relishes to cheese to everything, to get over a cold winter. And we're probably going to have to go back to that to some degree. But at the end of a season where there's a glut of tomatoes or a glut of onions or whatever it is, that is the perfect time. If you've got glass jars, save them, so that if you are growing your own crop of tomatoes, you probably, if you're successful, you have so many you won't know what to do with them. At least you can save them. You could turn them into tomato puree, or various things that one can do. I mean, I'm buying bits of equipment, and as an experiment, I'm trying to buy inexpensive ones to show people. I've just bought a still, for example, which I don't think cost me more than $35. So I could make alcohol. I could run the car in it if I had to, or I could get drunk if I felt like the need, or I can make tinctures with the alcohol that I've made. I've got a seed grinder. That's my latest purchase. Oh my God. I put some organic pumpkin seeds in the seed grinder, and you get a little alcohol burner, because you've got to warm them up to get the oil out without getting the oil hot. And so there's a little sort of oil burner. And you start the pumpkin seed oil. You've had we've all had pumpkin seed oil, probably out of a bottle. Oh my God, fresh. It was a revelation. I just wanted to eat it right off the spoon. And I've tried sunflower seed. You can grind anything you like and get oils out, because, as you know, bottled oils, perhaps with the honorable exception of extra virgin olive oil, any commercial oil that's not cold pressed, whether it's the best sunflower in the world or whatever it is essentially going to be a dangerous material. People don't realize how dangerous oils are. And that's one of the problems of eating out. It's the oils. Why are people having arterial problems? Why have they all got dementia and stuff? Well, your brain's made of cholesterol. So all these people are eating oils that are not animal-based or not olive or coconut. They don't know the damage they're doing. I gave a talk, it must be 15 years ago now, where I explained that this talk, if somebody had dementia in the family, that they should try giving coconut oil to somebody, or lots of soft egg yolks. And this woman rings me up 12 weeks later. She said 2 years before, she'd given up speaking to her mum on the telephone because it was a waste of time. She could no longer speak to her mum on the telephone. She'd given her 4 tablespoonfuls of coconut oil for 12 weeks, and now she was speaking on the phone again like 2 years before. In other words, reversing 2 years of dementia with cholesterol.
How about avocado oil? I know that's another hugely easy one to find. Coconut oil, avocado oil, and
depends how it's extracted. If it's been cold pressed, then it should be okay. If they've used it like the cheapskates do, they use 20-ton ram presses apparently, and they heat the oil up to an extreme temperature, so it's actually rancid, as they use the ram press to squeeze out every last drop. But they don't care, because they don't care. And people are eating rapeseed oil. Oh my, yeah, this is a disaster. Rapeseed, when I was young, rapeseed oil was called mineral oil because you use it in machinery. Nobody in their right mind would eat the stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of rebranding around that, isn't there? Now, it's a canola thing here, and it's a rebrand, a mix. They try to get these oils that are very low quality to rebrand the names of them. So they rebranded it all. And you just look at the quality of those oils. I mean, that's what you get in restaurants or takeaway plate. That's all they use, because the cost point on that is so low, but they still cook the food with it. I mean, you can cook food without oils, don't get me wrong, but it's not you're gonna need a nonstick pan, but that's not gonna work either, because nonstick, that whole Teflon thing, forget it.
I'll tell you what I use. On eBay in the States, you can buy glass frying pans, borosilicate, that you can put right on the flame, and put, and you can still buy them secondhand. You haven't been making them for 30 years or something. And they're great to cooking, because if you're cooking something, you can hold the glass pan up and look underneath and see if it's done without actually having to turn it over. You were talking about fat earlier, the fat of the land, the fatted calf, fat, natural fats, particularly from animals, has always been revered, the cream of the crop. In the Alps, for hundreds of years, there were dairy cure places where the cows and the sheep and the goats were grazing on, not grass, that's starvation for a cow. They were grazing on the wildflowers and the herbs and the mushrooms, along with all the different types of grasses. And people used to go out for health cures where they give you unpasteurized milk and cream and butter. The butter cure was one of the names that the clinics used to use.
We rented our own fat after we butchered our own animals. So I was telling the story about, the Amish farm where we get our animals from. There's an enormous amount of fat left over when you're butchering your own animal out. So, just to have the ability to bring that and cook that down and then take the byproduct, the chicharron or whatever, and still be able to consume those or give them to the dogs for food. But to have that ability to take that fat, to bring it to a storable medium and then put that into a freezer and be able to keep that, I told them, they were like, hey, what'd you do today? I'm still rendering the fat down from this cow we got, this calf. And, they chuckled on the phone, like, what century are you living in, man? And, really, that's the kind of way we're going to need to be thinking is you don't waste that. That's so valuable, that type of oil for cooking and restorative body function, that it's really, going to be worth more than its weight in gold, especially if a lot of these farm animals disappear because they don't have the feed input, or if they're rustled off the farm. There's been a lot of theft of animals going around lately. And I tell you what, the ginseng stealers, the ginseng bandits are back in our neighborhood here. And when I say our neighborhood, I'm talking about the mountain range here, where one of my neighbors who I buy my eggs from, she's got a bunch of chickens and a few cows down the way. She lives about a mile from me down the road. And she told me that her dogs had, cornered a guy up in the forest, and he had a full bag full of ginseng. And he started right down near our property, where there's a little crossroad down here, and walked through our property all the way down, at least a mile down the mountain range here, just stealing everybody's wild ginseng off their property. So if they're already at the point of stealing wild ginseng and the ginseng bandits are back, and there's been a lot of reports of chickens getting stolen and cows disappearing out of the fields, and that sort of thing, in addition to the coyotes taking their share. I mean, if it's already at this level and it's not really mission critical yet, I just can't see that there being a lot of large animals that will provide a lot of fats in the future moving forward. So again, stockpiling anything we can now. And, I had a couple last questions. If you do have fats and that sort of thing, lards and butters, and how long do you think realistically you can keep that in the freezer before it starts to lose its better word, potency?
Well, we're going to cut the power from time to time just to fuck everybody who has a freezer full of stuff. So, a tin canning machine, I had a friend in Canada, and she was brought up with a tin canning machine. At the end of the season, they didn't necessarily have enough glass jars, but tin cans were cheap, and they tinned everything up for keep them over the winter. In Canada, obviously, there's a short growing season. So you can buy tin canning machines, little ones, handheld, for very cheap, very little money.
So you think they're going to turn the power off on purpose just to get rid of everybody's frozen supplies?
Of course.
Oh, you put me off my fresh fried lobster. You just ruined my day.
So,
so many things to think about moving forward, truly keeping our health and our bodies, our minds functional as we go through these changes.
Right. Just to answer your food question, if I wanted to stock up with food, I would be buying, assuming you like these foods, the first thing is to make a list of what you really like.
Yeah, true.
Tins of sardines last forever, right? Super healthy, healthiest fish in the world, virtually. Tins of sardines in olive oil, not in sunflower oil. Mm-hmm. Something you can trust. And it's cheap, very nutritious, dense food. Dried fruits. I found a farm that dries organic raspberries, and they're fantastic, just fantastic. I've got dried apricots, I've got dried sour cherries, I've got all sorts of beans and stuff, rice, lentils. I've got loads of tubes of tomato concentrate because my kids love tomato pasta type stuff. I've got pasta. Loads of things I'll keep for ages. Just because the sell-by date says 2 years doesn't at all mean that 2 years and you've got to throw it away or something. And, if we don't have a food shortage, let's say everything worked out fine, well, then you got have a party. I've got raisins of different types. I've got all sorts of dried fruits, actually, because I really like dried fruits. And if push come to shove, then, you can survive for a long time on some basic foods. And I've got loads of stuff to sprout, like for salads. I've got everything from celery seeds, which are quite nice, to beetroot seeds, to loads of broccoli seeds, lots of alfalfa. So you just got to think it through. What you eat, and if it comes in a tin or a jar, chances are it's going to last for ages. Or if it's dried, just keep it dry, and don't tell anybody you've got it.
Have what? What do I have? I forgot. See what I mean? What are you talking about? I don't know. I don't have anything like that. But one last thing on the microgreen trays, when you're growing them out, you're always going to have some that you're not going to be able to harvest. And if you leave that tray for an additional day or two after you do what you think is the final cut, there's always going to be an additional 2, 5, 10, 15 that'll just come out of nowhere that we're waiting to get that light or heat or whatever after the larger first emerged get out of there. And you'll find that you're going to have at least 5 to 10 small little starters that come up, which you can then use to go put in your garden because they're already emerged. So, it's 100% sprout rate, and they already got a good, week under their belt. So they're going to have a lot more vibrancy in your garden and a better chance for survival. So you can either put them in a small pot or just plant them directly out there. But, don't throw that seed tray away right away with the compost or whatever you're using for the roots to bind into something. Hold on to it for a few extra days before you compost it, because you're going to get a few starters out of there.
Let me add one more thing. So let's say
Please do.
you've picked some carrots and they've got all the greenery on top. So use most of the carrot, but you keep the last inch of carrot with the greenery on top. Just plant it again. You got the bottom end of a celery. Plant it. So many cabbages. So lettuces. There's so many things will just grow on.
Romaine too. That's a goodie. And again, you're thinking about nutrient content. People are like, oh, we want to get iceberg lettuce. We want to grow iceberg lettuce. We want to grow lettuce. Well, hold on. I mean, iceberg lettuce is almost nothing in the nutrients compared to romaine, which is, 8 to 16 times higher than anything you can find out of a head of iceberg lettuce. So again, if you're going to be spending the money, it's going to be about what you're going to get for the integrity of your product to give you the highest value return, whatever that is. But really, it all comes down to getting the densest nutrition out of the smallest space. And if that requires automation by using soaker hoses and a timer to be able to get optimum watering into your garden or straw bale garden, like you talked about with the potatoes, that's going to be a gain right there for an extra $15 for the timer and an extra, $20 for the hose. I mean, you could get a higher yield out of that just by having those two simple devices. So there's a million solutions out there. But Clive, thanks for joining me. I don't know if you wanted to sign off with anything, but I will put everything in the description box below the video. CliveDeCarl.com. You can check out what's, an enormous vast amount of resources to delve further than just scratching the surface on our talk here. Because our world is changing, it's going to change further, and we really are going to have to be innovative in trying to keep our bodies healthy moving through these changes. And it's really the 1 year period we need to worry about, because by next year, there'll be a lot more things sorted out in terms of, communities coming together and getting this food chain back in order again. Clive, any last words?
No, just to remind people that while it's a paid for club, which I apologize about, but it pays the rent, secrethealthclub.com has got, I used to do consultations, so I don't really anymore. But all the information I used to give to people, which I charge a lot of money to give them the information, is there on the Secret Health Club. So if somebody's got, granny's got dementia, you can just go straight to the dementia page, and there's probably going to be the answers to pretty much everything.
And that's what we need. Again, it's about shared knowledge. I mean, we have the internet that's up and running now, but why would you try to reinvent the wheel if you had the person who actually invented carbon black to turn a tire into a tire and all that information is at your fingertips, right? I mean, we just need to take advantage of targeting the information we're searching for, because a huge amount of this research and solutions are already done for us. So it's now about just finding the right location and diving in and getting what works for you and your location.
You know, a lot of people are now creating their own private clubs, because kind of private club, there is no censorship. So it's the way it's going to go, I think.
Sad world when we can't even compare how our bodies should function. That's considered verboten in today's world. That's the kind of world we're living in. But anyway, Clive, thanks for coming on. And I hope everybody got something out of this talk to help you get ready for the changes and enhance the lives of you and your families and your communities. And we'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.